Joining us now is Governor Asa Hutchinson, Republican from Arkansas. He's the chairman of the National Governors Association. Governor, thanks so much for being here on a very big day. Obviously, the president has a lot to juggle in his speech, the crisis in Ukraine, inflation, of course, COVID. What are you hoping to hear from President Biden tonight?
Well, it's a very important message, and it's really not just a State of the Union address. It's really a State of the World address. And whether you're a governor or whether you're a mayor, we're all following what's happening in Ukraine and the change in the world climate since within the last week with Russia invading. And so he's got to address that. We're anxious to see the message of strength from the United States of America, more solutions, more support for Ukraine, but also addressing the humanitarian crisis there. And so that's on the minds of Americans, and he has got to shift to be able to assure the public that we're doing all that we can as a nation to shore up freedom in that part of Europe, because this world has changed, and it's the first time we've heard the concern about nuclear weapons in a long, long time.
Governor Hutchinson, we want to ask you about that specifically. We've heard the Republican criticism of the administration's handling of Ukraine, that it hasn't gone far enough. But we're watching the ruble right now is crumbling. NATO appears more united than it has been in decades, exactly what Vladimir Putin was hoping to avoid. What more specifically do you think the U.S. should be doing in terms of sanctions?
Well, first of all, you've got to speed the relief there. Whenever we're putting armaments in support of Ukraine, let's get them there. The logistics challenge, let's move very quickly. Secondly, I do think that you have to look at more support for Poland in terms of the humanitarian crisis and as refugees come out of Ukraine into Poland. But what we need to see is resolve. And this is a time that we can come together and support the president. Republicans, we have difference in policy. We would like to have seen more aggressive action early on, the sanctions imposed more quickly and more strongly very early on. But notwithstanding that, this is an opportunity to unify the country more, because we all united behind the incredible bravery that we see in Ukraine. He has to spend time on the domestic issues. That's where there's more disagreements with the Republicans, whether it's border security, crime issues, inflation. Those has to be addressed, but you start with the incredible change in our world environment, and it gives an opportunity for the president.
Governor, let me follow up with you on that point. We asked Jen Psaki on this show yesterday if the president would support enforcing a no-fly zone. She was very clear. She said no. Do you think that the U.S. should enforce a no-fly zone? This is something that President Zelensky has called for.
Well, I have a number of experts in the defense field, and there's concerns about a no-fly zone. That's the first thing you think about, because we've enforced that, whether it's in Syria or Iraq in different times in history. But whenever you look at the surface-to-air missiles that could be launched from Russia, you've got to take those out, and that would put us engaging on Russian territory. So there are some reasons that you don't put into place immediately a no-fly zone. But I do believe that we have to get the support to them, and Europe has to be able to support. So we're all looking for ways that we can give the Ukrainians the support quickly and in an emergency fashion that they need. I think one of the things that's been lost on Putin, one of his goals was to keep Ukraine out of NATO. Well, we've increased that bond, and I think there's a willingness to accelerate the movement of Ukraine into NATO. Those are steps that the president should talk about tonight.
Governor, let me ask you, if I can, quickly. Former President Trump, you've seen, he called Vladimir Putin smart and savvy, said that his strategy was, quote, genius. He's clearly the leader of the Republican Party right now. Do you condemn those words?
Well, Putin is evil, and he needs to be called such. And anybody who does not call out Putin for the person that he is and the atrocities that he is conducting, they're not the leader of the party that I believe in terms of Ronald Reagan's strength. And, of course, he called Russia the evil empire. Well, let's call it as it is, and this is aggression that needs to stop, and I want all of our Republican leaders to be united in that voice.
Governor, we are running tight on time, so I want to just get to our final question, which is about the Republican response. We are going to hear from Iowa's Governor Kim Reynolds. What do you want to hear in the Republican response? What does she need to say?
Well, first of all, just the fact that she is speaking really reflects Middle America. It reflects the strength of our women leaders here in the United States as governors, and it showcases what governors can do. So I would expect focusing on our freedom and how we've handled the pandemic, but also the emphasis on border security, which I hope the president addresses tonight. So, and the crime issues. So I would expect all of those things to be touched upon and showcasing what Republican leadership means and the differences that it would reflect with the president and how we approach these issues.
A lot of eyes on both of the speeches. Governor Asa Hutchinson, thank you so much for joining us today. Great to see you.
Thank you, Governor. President Biden
Good to be
and
with
his
you.
team